Welcome back to Meet Me at the Grizz. I'm Ken Clow, your host, longtime scouter, and camp volunteer. If you're new here, this is the podcast where we talk about life, leadership, and scouting, all centered around experiences at Rotary Scout Reservation and the people who make those experiences meaningful. Today's episode is all about Cub Scout Resident Camp. What it is, what it feels like, and why it matters so much in a young scout's journey. I'm joined today by Quinn Chicuela, the program director at Rotary Scout Reservation, who brings a really thoughtful perspective, not just on what happens at camp, but on why it's designed the way it is, how staff are trained, and what families and scouts actually take away from the experience. And one quick heads up before we get started, if you hear some barking in the background during part of the episode, that's my Great Pyrenees, Moxie. She clearly felt this was an important conversation and wanted to participate. I'm choosing to believe that she was passionately encouraging every Cub Scout listening to go to resident camp. She always has something to say, and this time, it was about summer camp. So with that said, let's get started. I asked Quinn to share his background about scouting and his current position. Before we dive into Cub Scout Resident Camp itself, I wanted to start with Quinn's own scouting journey, how he got started, the different roles he's held, and how that path eventually led him to his current role as program director at Rotary Scout Reservation. Well, Quinn, welcome to Meet Me at the Grizz. I'm so happy that you're here on the podcast with us today. I think we have a really important topic to talk about. We're going to be talking about Cub Scout Resident Camp, and I know all the listeners are going to be very excited to listen to what you have to say. But before we jump into Cub Scout Resident Camp, can you start by sharing with us a little bit about your scouting experience and how you came to be in your current position at Rotary?
Absolutely, Ken. Really excited to be here. It was definitely a journey to get from where I was to where now, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I started way back in 2015 at Camp Waukponomy doing different positions such as kitchen aid and trail to first class. And then between Jamboree years, I skipped a few, came back in 2019, and I was ready to go into program director at Waukponomy. Real excited. Then we had COVID, and that changed everything from there. And I worked with Brian at the time. I talked with him. I showed really good interest of, hey, I want to do program director. And it didn't really work out just because they had a program director at the time. And so I came in as commissioner. They never had a commissioner before. They wanted to pilot the program of a paid commissioner for the whole summer, not just multiple commissioners, because with COVID, they had a lot less commissioners coming in and there was a need. I came in, I did that for a few years. I was really excited to be part of the team. And then the third year I did office manager just because I work in the scouting office at Twin Rivers and I still want to be part of the camp. Last year I was asked to be program director. I had a fantastic time. I worked with the Cub Scout program and our Scouts BSA, and I'm excited to do another year of this long journey I had with Rotary. I want to keep it rolling.
What is Cub Scout Resident Camp? A lot of families hear the phrase Cub Scout Resident Camp, but they're not always sure what that actually means. So I asked Quinn to step back and explain what Cub Scout Resident Camp is, who it's for, and why it's such a unique experience. Why don't we talk a little bit about what is Cub Scout Resident Camp? I think there are a lot of people who hear about it. They might not understand what it is. Share with us your thoughts on, what is it and why do people come and why it's enjoyable?
Absolutely. I will say, whenever I talk about wrestling camp, I'm always a little jealous because I never had the opportunity to do it. And I will say that many people are the same boat of going, wow, this is such a great program. I wish I could do it. Cub Scout Resident Camp is a fun outdoor program for Cub Scouts, first grade and older. So we're talking our tiger, wolf, bear, Weeblos, etc., AOLs. And Cub Scouts participate with a parent or with their entire pack or den, and it's a overnight experience, so that it's designed for scouts to have a great time and participate in that outdoor adventure, and not just a few hours during the day. It's more of, hey, this is actually a camp out, this is an event, but also having that quality program intermixed into that experience. So it's not just camping out with your den or your pack, but you're able to do a real built-in program alongside paid staff that are there with you the whole time, creating a fantastic program of different components.
How long is camp? Once you understand what resident camp is, the next question is usually about time. How long are scouts there? How does the time work? Quinn walks us through the structure of the sessions and what families can expect. Now, how long is the Cub Scout resident camp? How many days do the scouts participate? When do they start? When do they end?
Sure, it's 3 days. So it's broken up into two halves. So there's session one and session two at Rotary. So session one is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So sorry, it's 4 days, but 3 days of program. And then it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday into Saturday. So you arrive on the first day being Sunday, and then you leave Wednesday morning. And then for the second session, you arrive Wednesday afternoon, leave Saturday morning.
What happens when scouts arrive? First impressions matter, especially when you're talking about younger scouts and their families. I asked Quinn to describe what the first day looks like, from arrival and check-in to getting settled and jumping into program. And what kind of happened, when scouts and their families arrive? I mean, that must be kind of an exciting time.
It's very exciting. A lot of parents and scouts don't always know what to expect, and this is our first impression. So to make it easier, instead of saying Sunday or Wednesday, I'll just do day one. So
Mm-hmm.
when we have our arrival day for day one, it's 12:45. Little after lunch, start having scouts and parents arrive in our parking lot, and check-in begins. We do our medical forms, we check in, make sure everyone has all their gear. This is a great opportunity to go, hey, do you have a sleeping bag? Even though it's in the guide, sometimes people go, oh, I completely forgot, and it gives them some time to figure that out, and camp hasn't started yet, and kind of get through everything. And what's really neat is all of our staff are hands on deck. We have the entire staff come in, bring people down, show them where they need to go, introduce them to their campsite, work with their new den. That is, if they don't bring a whole den with them, they'll get joined in with other people to form a den or a campsite. And it's a great opportunity for icebreakers and kind of get to know everybody. And around 2 o'clock is when afternoon program. So you drop all your gear off, get everything set. You have some time to get ready, and then you get to have program time. And we have certain areas that are open with crafts and opportunities, but we also, at the same time, while that afternoon program exists, is we do swim checks. So it gives a little bit of, hey, you did your swim check, now you have something to do. Or, hey, it took a while you're waiting, you can do a program until swim checks are ready to go. So no one's twiddling their thumbs.
What are the program areas at camp? One of the strengths of residence camp is a variety of activities available. Quinn breaks down the different program areas and how they're tailored for Cub Scouts and how they balance fun, learning, and age-appropriate challenges. Can you describe some of the program areas that a Cub Scout might experience as they go through the resident camp? Are they the same program areas that the Scouts experience, or are they a little bit different, or are they, what do they do?
Yeah, great question. It's very similar to Scouts BSA in terms of the generalization of program areas, but there's definitely differences for the age group. So we have our waterfront. So we have swimming, boating, things like that. And we work on instructional swim for the different Cub Scout adventures. We also have archery. So far, pretty similar. But then we kind of go into that target and range activities. We have BBs, slingshots. So that's a little different with the Cub Scout component. And then in Scoutcraft, we have fishing and Scoutcraft skills that are appropriate for the Cub Scouts. So certain different knots and components there. We also do sports and games, generally run by the TTFC area, and they also work with handicraft often in the same space so that they're in closer proximity. We also do first aid skills. We mentioned crafts, nature hikes by Scoutcraft again, and we put in some STEM. So there's a lot happening. A lot of areas are very similar, but they do consolidate or switch up, such as range and target activities doing BB gun instead of shotgun.
How dens travel around camp. Camp feels like a big place, especially the first time. So I asked Quinn to explain how dens move through camp, how schedules work, and how the experience is structured to keep things organized but still flexible. Now, when the Cub Scouts go to all these different activities, they go with their den. Is that kind of the idea? They all kind of follow the same schedule together?
Yeah, so the campsite often is associated as a den depending on the size. Our first session is usually our largest session. So that's where sometimes they might be broken up. But if they come in as a den, for the most part, unless they're like a giant den, they're all together. Often, if it's a really big group, we might split it. But if you are bringing more than yourself, you are often with that group because that makes it easier for connection, communicating, etc. So you're not going to be like split up. However, if you bring, a den of like 28 kids, you're probably going to be broken up into a group in half just so that we can move people around. How program is built is to move in these sections as a round robin situation. So it's not necessarily a free for all as much as, hey, this is where you're going with a schedule. We do have open program after dinner that allows more of that. While we do definitely recommend going as a group, just so that you can kind of facilitate and work. Hey, I know these scouts. It's not required as long as they have a leader or parent with that scout going to that designated area. Often we'll have bouldering and climbing available in an open program, and we have a whole group go and do that. So it's very exciting.
The dining hall experience. For many scouts and parents, the dining hall becomes one of the most memorable parts of camp. Quinn shares what meals are like, how Cub Scouts are supported, and the way the dining hall is such an energetic part of the day. They also get to experience some of the other things I think that scouts typically experience at Rotary. Do they eat in the dining hall and do they do a campfire and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, great question. So for the component of the schedule, it's very similar because for our staff, it makes it kind of easy to understand our normal schedule. So often it's our dining hall times are very similar, flags, that component. Our dining hall is a little more different in the sense that we have everybody go in the dining hall, they get to experience it, and we work with the scouts, the cubs, the tigers, getting their meal if they need any help. Often we have parents also helping, but the feel of the dining hall is very similar. It's very loud and rambunctious. We do a lot of songs. We have a lot of fun. Kids are always smiling and giggling with the different songs that we're doing, and it's a really good experience in that component. We also do our flag ceremonies, which down behind the dining hall, which is really cool. We get some really fantastic pictures of the kids doing the flags. We have a different den do that in their uniform, and it's really, really fantastic in that regard.
Opening campfire. No camp experience feels complete without a campfire. I asked Quinn about the opening campfire, what makes it special for Cub Scouts, how staff run it, and why it sets the tone for the rest of the session. I know one of the highlights of the scouting camp is the campfire. Do you do an opening campfire for the Cub Scout Resident Camp?
Yeah, we do. For our opening campfire on day one, it is completely run by our staff so that we have a lot of fun with this. And it's very similar to Scouts BSA, where we're doing different songs, skits. Our Cub Scouts love it so much, especially things that they can join in on and different chants and components. They're like, oh, I get that. And we have a blast. Often you'll see a staff in like a full stuffed animal outfit or inflatables. Anything they can find, they will wear. Often when you see staff pictures of campfire, somebody's dressed in something. I think I have a giant pinata costume still in my closet because I've definitely joined in there.
The role of parents and den leaders. Parents and leaders often wonder what their role will be at resident camp. Quinn explains how the staff supports the program, what's expected of adults, and why this balance works so well for everyone involved. So it sounds like the Scouts have a lot of activities to do, a lot of things that keep them busy, a lot of things that keep them excited and engaged. How would you describe the experience for parents and leaders that come? What do they do, as part of this resident camp?
Yeah, it's definitely something that's different. A lot of them come in that are involved with their pack and they kind of expect really like, okay, we got to do this, this, and this. How we have it built is, hey, we have the program. We're just looking for you to help your scout make sure they have a fantastic time. So for a craft, we have everything ready. We have the instructions, we have the staff. They'll work with different Cub Scouts that are struggling and then just looking for the support. And to that point, often we have parents join in. They'll do the craft too, and like, oh, look what I made, and they do a competition with each other. Like last time, we were making cars last year, and then a different parent would work with their scout and see who had the coolest car. And it's where parents often and always have a really good experience in relating to not just the being at Rotary, but the program itself, because we love getting feedback and understanding what did you like this year? What would you like different next year? And we do our best to make our program really busy while also being flexible. So it's not something that, hey, it rains. Okay, we'll move this around, while also saying there's never a moment to twiddle your thumbs. Go and have fun and do something new.
So it sounds like, the parents and the scout leaders have a very similar responsibility to the leaders at Scout BSA camp, where they're there to kind of manage the scouts at the campsite and get them and make sure they get from place to place. They don't actually have to plan the activities and execute them. They're just there, to monitor things while the staff is doing everything. The trading post and slushies. We couldn't talk about camp without talking about the trading post. And yes, the slushies. Quinn shares how the trading post fits into the schedule and why it's always a highlight for scouts. And of course, trading post, that must be a big hit.
Yeah, the trading post is definitely very popular, after a meal or before a meal, during a siesta, if you will, during that open program after dinner. So it's a little more stretched out of like there's bigger blocks, which allow us better control of sending a staff to assist. A lot of kids, surprisingly, it's not really candy. It's as much as different knickknacks and cool stuff. You would think that candy would be going off the shelf, but it's not. It's usually like pretzels and things like that.
And I'm sure they're still getting slushies.
Yes, slushies are very popular.
Camp staff at Cub Scout Resident Camp. Staff make or break a camp experience. I asked Quinn to talk about the staff training, working with different age levels, and how the team prepares specifically for Cub Scout Resident Camp. Previously on the podcast, I've had a couple staff members talk about how the week before camp begins, they go through an extensive training period, and they also learn and they are trained in how to interact with different levels of scouting. So they get trained not only in how to deal with what happens at camp during Scouts BSA, but also how they get trained for the Cub Scout Resident Camp. And can you just talk a little bit about some of the training, that goes in that's really age appropriate?
Yeah, absolutely. The training we do before camp is really involved. We spend a whole week, we're getting camp ready, but we're also doing training after training to get our staff prepared and ready. And a part of that, a good chunk, is our summer camp for Cub Scouts. We do trainings involved with, hey, how do we deal with conflict of this age group? How do we deal with when they have an issue or a problem and something that's a little different, where a Scouts BSA wouldn't necessarily have that problem, but a Cub Scout would, because they are half the size. They are not as socially adept, things of that nature. How can we work with them? We also do a training led by Ed Keelan of how to do instruction different and how to prepare material in a way that best helps them at that age group. So we talk about our Tigers, then we talk about the AOLs, where we have to build a program that can do both at the same time. So often we suggest and work with a add-on craft kind of style. So, hey, this is the minimum for those Tigers to get the same component. And then for the AOLs, this is what you can do to add to it to get to that level that they're able to do while doing it in the same amount of time or the time slot, and getting a result that works for them and for that other scout that is multiple years younger. While in Scouts BSA, often, okay, your 12-year-old and 17-year-old definitely different, but your 12-year-old and 15 are pretty close for some components. With Cub Scouts, is not the case. That's a really big space. So a lot of our staff have been instructed how to work with that.
Oh, that's really interesting. I know Ed's been on the podcast before, and our listeners will know that, he's also a lifelong educator and taught middle school, so he would be a perfect person to understand all the different educational needs of the different age levels. So that's awesome that he does that. Feedback from participants. After camp ends, the feedback starts coming in. Quinn talks about what scouts and parents consistently say they love, and some of the surprises that stand out year after year. Can you give us an idea of, some of the feedback that you get from scouts and parents about the resident camp? What are some things that they really like about the experience?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the number one components I get is, "Whoa, I didn't expect this food to be good," and I I love talking about how our cook Sean puts so much effort and work into everything, and I always get back like, "Wow, this food is tasty." I don't know, when they picture camp food, I'm thinking they're like a pan on the ground with a rock or something, and they just don't think dining hall. And often that's the big feedback of like, wow, this food is really good. And we have that. But also they love the program. They often say, wow, it's so nice to be busy, to kind of have these options, but also that open program of choosing. And it's a good mix. When we first started this program, we did it where it was all controlled. It was like, okay, this is what you do. There's no open program. Then the following year, we flipped it, and this is years ago, of like, okay, pick and choose. And we finally found a hybrid model where, okay, everything is kind of Red Robin style, and then you have an option in the evening to do what you would like and kind of have work as a group. Like, hey, my den and this other den want to go and do slingshot together, and we'll go and do this. Or, hey, I have one scout that was not here during the BB gun component, and we want him to get that adventure. Can he come during open program and get that worked on, as long as we send a leader? And we're like, absolutely. And one of our biggest pros that I love our staff for is we're flexible.
Making improvements. Good programs evolve. I asked Quinn how feedback is used to make changes, refine schedules, and improve the experience each summer. In addition to some positive feedback, I imagine you also get some comments about how to improve things for the next year or for future years. How do you integrate, those comments into making the program even better each year?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a form very similar to Scouts BSA of a feedback of, hey, what's good, what's bad, and what we do is we go through it. We kind of make a list of anything that seems to be consistent of, hey, this is something keeps bringing up. Obviously, whenever we have like a really negative feedback of like, hey, I was really concerned about this, we'll reach out, we'll work with them. But we're more looking for, hey, I just as an example, I feel like I was rushed during breakfast time, and we'll, okay, this is like the seventh person this week that said this. We're going to adjust the time, and they're coming from a really far site from this distance. And we didn't really think about how long it takes these little Cub Scouts to walk all the way here. Let's move flags back by 10 minutes or something along those lines, just as an example, because we're still learning with our Cub Scouts of the differences between Scouts BSA. We've done Scouts BSA for a very long time.
Hmm.
And so we have all these schedules, and okay, we know exactly how long it takes from this to this, but Cub Scouts are half the height. So there's different components and different needs and expectations.
Why Cub Scout Resident Camp is important in a Scout's journey. Stepping back from logistics, I wanted Quinn's perspective on why Resident Camp matters, how it shapes confidence, builds connection, and prepares Scouts for what comes next. From your perspective, from a program standpoint, how does Cub Scout Resident Camp become an important step into going to Rotary and Scouts BSA?
Often I hear it from other people, but also I say it myself. Hey, if we get a scout to go to Scouts BSA, they're probably going to stay the following year involved in Scouts. That's always the hook that gets them involved. And I think it's very similar with the Cub Scouts, but also on the parent component. They see firsthand their kids enjoy a program and be involved and go, wow, and they see all the benefits of this program firsthand. Things hacks are fantastic, they go different outings, but often the parent, unless they're an involved parent, they're not right there. A resident camp, they get to see that firsthand.
What do you want families to take away from summer camp? Beyond badges and activities, there's something deeper that families carry home. Quinn shares what he hopes Scouts and parents remember long after camp ends. What do you wish families understood more about the value of the Cub Scout Resident Camp experience?
So for me is often for the value of it is, yes, I know it's multiple days during the week, and definitely is the middle of the summer, but that lasting impression is something that will last with those Cub Scouts for a very long time. If someone asked me, hey, do you remember your experience going to, I did day camp, they didn't have resident camp at a time, I would answer absolutely. I remember more about my Cub Scout experience of the camping components than I remember it of school at my house, is because it was so different and unique. And the friends I made in Scouts, I am still friends with now, including some of my Cub Scout friends, which is definitely interesting. Of like, hey, how did you meet him? Oh, I met him at day camp, and he lived all the way in Whitehall. It's very unique. You find people that have the same experiences and the interest all in one space, and you're doing things that really no other people are doing. Who can go and boulder on a giant climbing tower? Who gets to shoot a BB gun at your Cub Scout age, being a second grader? It's different and it's unique.
What should parents know about camp when they sign up? For families considering resident camp for the first time, Quinn offers practical advice. What to prepare for, what to pack, and how to set expectations for a smooth experience. For parents that may be listening to this and are considering Cub Scout Resident Camp for the first time, What would you like them to know? How do they sign up? What do they need to do? Anything else that they should be thinking about?
Yeah, one of the number one things is when you go on the parent guide that our camp director provides of all the materials, that material list is very important. And not just the material, but how you transport it. One of my biggest suggestions is if you're going to go big, go for something like a wagon. Don't do the suitcases because we're outside. Suitcases are always tough. But if you want to bring some extra stuff because you want to be prepared, we're happy to help. It's really important to have that wagon or a backpack, something that can get you point A to point B. The suitcases, while they keep everything tight, it's hard to move it from your car and drag it down a
Hmm.
dirt road to your campsite. And while we often are helping, assisting, and doing everything with our staff trying to help you move stuff, if you have things that can be put on your bag or your back and then carried like a wagon, it makes it a lot easier for you as well, because then you can just get right to where you want to go and get it going. Also, prepare for the weather. We can't control rain, and often people bring in like umbrellas and things like that. Bring a good rain jacket, some extra clothes, extra pair of boots and shoes. We have a lot of facilities that keep you dry, but just trying to get a point A to point B or point A to point B during that, it's always helpful to have something that'll keep you dry.
How should parents sign up? We also cover the logistics of registration, whether families sign up individually or as a den, and how the process works. How would a parent go about signing up for camp? Is it something that you have to do as a den? Can they do it individually? How does that kind of work?
It's kind of both. We always suggest if you know other people in your den are going to apply, it does make it easier to do it as a group, just so that we can spot and notice, okay, we're going to put everybody here in the same campsite. We can always make those changes if you let us know, but it just catches it. However, if you are the only one going and you know that, absolutely go in individually and don't feel that you have to check with your den, because even if you just go individually, we often catch it and then ask if you want to be together. However, if you're planning to go as a group, it is very helpful to go in as a pack or a den and do that registration all at once. However, we're very flexible because we just want to make sure that you get signed up and have a fantastic time.
And finally, I asked Quinn if there's anything that stands out to him as the program director. As we start to wrap up, I asked Quinn to reflect personally. What moments stand out to him the most, and why this program continues to matter year after year? As we're kind of wrapping up here, is there any experience about Cub Scout Resident Camp that really stands out in your mind?
Uh, yeah, probably two or three. One is doing the flags, I think, is very interesting because I can't say I've had many experiences where I, as a Cub Scout, would do flag in front of hundreds of people and kind of be part of a movement all together and visually see it. It's such a unique experience of even seeing it on the third person and not doing it, just trying to imagine being Cub Scout. Wow, I'm putting up a flag in front of like 120 Cub Scouts, let alone all the staff and the adults. And the other component probably would be the waterfront. I can't say I really ever had experience to be able to swim and do that out in with instructors in a lake. Totally could be at a YMCA or something like that. But how often can I just jump in and know that I have somebody watching out for me? We have lifeguards, understanding it's super safe. I don't know. I just found a really, really good experience with that, especially with the boating and being in the rowboat with your parent and just kind of seeing the lake and going fishing as well.
A big thank you. Before closing, I thanked Quinn for his time, his leadership, and the care he brings to creating meaningful experiences for Cub Scouts and their families. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us to talk about Cub Scout Resident Camp. I know we have a lot of parents and a lot of scouts that are listening that are considering it. And so this is the time, I think, to go and kind of sign up for it. I think your insights today are going to be great for parents and den leaders and Cub Scouts to really understand what resident camp is all about. So thank you for being on the podcast.
Absolutely happy to be here.
And that's this episode of Meet Me at the Grizz. If you're a parent, leader, or scout thinking about Cub Scout Resident Camp, I hope this conversation gave you a clearer picture of what it's really like and why so many families say it becomes a highlight of their scouting experience. I'm Ken Clow. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with another scouting family who might be interested in attending Cub Scout Resident Camp. And as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting scouting. And I'll see you next time, right here at the Grizz.